The holographic displays at Terra Command buzzed with orbital trajectories and fuel calculations. Dr. Amara Bell stood before the massive screen, showing Mars in its rust-colored glory, her reflection ghosting over the planet's surface. Behind her, mission controllers spoke in hushed, reverent tones about humanity's next great leap. On screens across 3 continents, news anchors debated the same question. Who will be the first human to walk on Mars? Corporate logos flashed beside headshots of white male astronauts. Amara's name wasn't mentioned once. In the gravity simulator down the hall, she practiced her first steps in Martian conditions, each movement precise and deliberate, knowing the weight of history rested on her shoulders. The launch pad stretched toward a sky painted with dawn's promise. Amara's grandmother had once told her that their ancestors looked up at these same stars from cotton fields, dreaming of freedom.
Ow.
Amara was about to touch another world. The rocket's engines roared to life, and Earth fell away beneath them. During the 7-month journey through the cosmic void, Amara floated past viewports, showing the infinite black, her crewmates sleeping in their pods while she worked on system diagnostics. When a critical navigation error threatened their trajectory, she solved it alone in the ship's quiet hum, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Lyra, the AI companion, observed her work with something approaching admiration. Dr. Bell, the synthetic voice whispered, "Your grandmother would be proud." Mars grew larger in their viewport each day, transforming from a distant red dot to a world of canyons and polar ice caps. As they entered orbit, Amara volunteered for the historic first step. The crew looked uncomfortable but couldn't argue with protocol. She was mission commander after all. The lander touched down in Ossidalia Planitia with a gentle thud that would echo through history. Amara sealed her helmet, checked her oxygen levels one final time, and opened the hatch. Her boots touched alien soil at 14:32 GMT on September 15, 2074. This is for everyone who was never allowed to dream this big. She whispered into her come, her voice carrying across 140 million miles of space. The helmet camera captured everything, the rust-colored landscape stretching to the horizon, the Earth hanging like a blue marble in the butterscotch sky, and Amara's steady hands planting not a national flag, but a banner representing all of humanity. She collected soil samples, took photographs, and recorded detailed observations, while her heart hammered with the magnitude of the moment. But somewhere between Mars and Earth, something went wrong. Transmission began to lag, then fragment. Back on Earth, corporate representatives stood at podiums, claiming credit for the mission's success. Amara's name disappeared from press releases. When footage finally reached Earth 12 minutes later, it was corrupted, pixelated, barely recognizable. A white male mission specialist was credited as first on Mars in the initial reports. Amara, listening to the radio chatter from Mars' surface, felt the familiar sting of erasure. Over the following days, Amara noticed subtle changes in her mission logs. Timestamps were altered. Her personal observations vanished from official records. Lyra confirmed her suspicions in encrypted whispers. "Dr. Bell, your data is being rerouted through corporate servers. Your contributions are being edited." That night, Amara sent encrypted files to her mentor at Howard University. Knowing that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep they try to bury it. She remembered being rejected from NASA twice, told she wasn't the right fit for their program. Now, repairing a damaged rover with nothing but spare parts and ingenuity, she proved them wrong with every breath of recycled air. A coded message from corporate headquarters made their intentions clear. Stay in line. There are bigger things at stake than personal glory. But Amara had never been one to stay in line. During her geological surveys, Amara discovered something extraordinary: microscopic fossils embedded in Martian rock, evidence of ancient life. She carefully documented everything, signing her name to each entry. But when the discovery reached Earth, headlines credited the find to someone else. Her ancestors visited her dreams that night, freed slaves and civil rights leaders standing in a circle around her sleeping pod. "You carry our strength," her grandmother's voice echoed. "Don't let them steal your story." The crew captain sympathized but felt powerless against corporate pressure. "I believe you, Amara, but I have a family to feed." Secret allies on Earth sent coded encouragements. "We see you, we believe you, we're fighting for you." Public interest in the Mars mission was massive, but Amara remained a footnote. supporting character in someone else's hero story. Working in secret, Amara constructed a signal relay from spare communications equipment. She knew this single act could end her career, but some truths were worth the risk. At 3 o'clock Mars time, while her crew slept, she activated a direct broadcast to Earth. No corporate filters, no edited footage. Just Amara Bell, the first human on Mars, telling her story in her own words. The unfiltered transmission bypassed corporate networks and reached independent media outlets. Within hours, the footage went viral across social networks. Millions saw Amara's face, heard her voice, witnessed her historic first steps before the video was pulled down. But it was too late. The truth had already spread like wildfire across the global consciousness. Earth erupted in protests and support movements. Civil rights groups organized rallies in major cities. Students at Howard University, Spelman College, and universities across Africa held vigils. The hashtag Amara movement trended worldwide. Corporate stocks fluctuated as public opinion shifted. Some tried to discredit her claims, but too many had seen the evidence with their own eyes. On her final day on Mars, Amara gave an unscheduled address directly to Earth, bypassing all official channels. "I didn't come to Mars to be remembered," she said, standing against the alien sunset. "I came here to prove that humanity's future belongs to all of us, every dreamer. Every child told they're not good enough. Every person who dares to reach beyond what others think possible." Before departing Mars, Amara buried a time capsule in the red soil, her personal mission logs, photographs, and a letter to future generations. "Let them try to erase this," she whispered, sealing the container with Martian dust. The return journey took 7 months, but Earth's reception was ready. Corporate attempts to control the narrative had crumbled under public pressure. When Amara's ship touched down at the Kennedy Space Center, thousands of people lined the barriers. Children held signs reading "Our Hero," and first on Mars, Amara walked down the ramp to thunderous applause, her steps steady and sure. The statue unveiled in her honor 6 months later captured her in that historic moment, one hand extended toward the stars, the other holding a soil sample from Mars. The inscription read simply, "Dr. Amara Bell, the first human on Mars." But Amara knew the real victory wasn't in bronze or marble. It was in the young black girls who now looked at the red planet and saw possibility instead of impossibility. History had tried to erase her, but the truth has gravity. It pulls everything toward it eventually. And on Mars, where Amara's footprints still mark the dust, future explorers would find her time capsule and remember, the first human to walk on another world was a black woman who refused to let anyone steal her story from the stars. Years later, when the Mars colony had grown from a handful of research stations to a thriving settlement of 10,000 souls, Amara returned as the colony's first civilian governor. The corporate sponsors who had tried to erase her now competed for photo opportunities with her. She found bitter irony in their sudden enthusiasm for her legacy, but she had learned to channel anger into action. The Amara Bell Research Station became the colony's heart. Its laboratories pushing the boundaries of what humanity thought possible. Young scientists from every continent came to work under her guidance, and she made sure their names appeared on every discovery. Every breakthrough, every small step forward, science belongs to everyone, she would tell them during orientation. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. In the station's memorial garden, earth plants grew alongside carefully cultivated Martian flora, living symbol of two worlds united. Amara often walked these paths in the early Martian morning, when Phobos cast strange shadows across the greenhouse domes. The fossil samples she'd discovered on that first day had revealed not just ancient microbial life, but complex organic compounds that suggested Mars had once harbored a sophisticated ecosystem. Each new finding validated that moment when she'd knelt in the red dirt and dared to hope they weren't alone. The children born in the colony knew her not as a historical figure, but as Grandmama Amara, the woman who read them stories about Earth's blue oceans and took them on walks to see the sunrise over Olympus Mons. These Mars-born children, with their slightly taller frames and adapted lung capacity, represented humanity's future among the stars. When they asked about the early days, Amara would point to the memorial wall where her original crew's names were etched in Martian basalt. "We came here together," she'd say, "remember that. No one makes history alone." The corporate executives who had orchestrated her erasure were long gone. their companies absorbed by newer entities or relegated to footnotes in business history. But Amara remained, her hair now silver against the russet landscape, her hands steady as ever as she tended to experiments that would take decades to complete. She had outlasted them all through the simple act of refusing to disappear. Sometimes, on quiet nights, when Earth was visible as a bright star in the Martian sky, she would video call her great-nieces and nephews. They would show her their school projects about space exploration, always starting with Aunt Amara was the first person on Mars. The next generation grew up in a world where her story was undisputed fact, where young black girls saw her face on currency and postage stamps, where her journey from rejected NASA applicant to planetary pioneer was taught in elementary schools, alongside the Wright brothers and Marie Curie. The time capsule she'd buried during that first mission became the foundation for Mars' first historical preservation site. Archaeologists carefully excavated around it, creating a museum that attracted visitors from across the solar system. The original burial site remained untouched, marked by a simple plaque. Here lies the truth that could not be buried. Tour guides would explain how corporate interests had tried to rewrite history, but how the power of documentation and public pressure had preserved the real story for posterity. On the 20th anniversary of her first steps on Mars, Amara stood before the assembled colonists in the main dome. The crowd included her original crewmates, now gray-haired and distinguished, alongside the children who would carry humanity's future to Jupiter's moons and Saturn's rings. In her speech, she reflected on the dual victories, not just reaching Mars, but ensuring that history remembered all who had reached for the stars. They tried to steal our story, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the dome's acoustics. But stories like seeds have a way of finding light. Every one of you carries within you the power to plant new stories, to reach higher, to refuse to be diminished by those who profit from your silence. The applause echoed off the dome's transparent aluminum, a sound that seemed to rise toward Earth itself. As Amara aged, she began training her successor, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant engineer whose own grandmother had picked strawberries in California's Central Valley while dreaming of her granddaughter reaching the stars. The pattern would continue, each generation lifting the next, ensuring that no dreamer was left behind, that no story was stolen by those who mistook silence for consent. When Amara finally passed at the age of 93, her memorial service was broadcast across the solar system. Earth's bells tolled for 24 hours. Mars observed a day of silence broken only by the wind across its ancient valleys. Her ashes were scattered at both the original landing site and the research station's garden, binding her forever to the world she had claimed for all humanity. The inscription on her final memorial read, "She reached for Mars and brought heaven a little closer to Earth." But perhaps the most fitting tribute was simpler in classrooms across two worlds. Children learned her name before they learned to tie their shoes, and they grew up believing that reaching for impossible things was not just possible but expected. The first human on Mars had ensured that she would not be the last to refuse erasure. And in that refusal, she had changed what it meant to make history among the stars.